morning, ladies. Again, I'm just a few minutes early because I wanted to make sure everything was set up. We're going to be talking about, I'm going to show you how to make a little Easter chick. Well, let's call them spring chicks as we're not talking Easter anymore. Little arrangement that can either be hung up on the wall, or my idea was that we would create a small terrarium, basically an arrangement in a glass pot, and I'm going to get the little birds to hang down inside the pot. So it's a really good way of using up all those Easter chicks that you might either have had on your cake, or you've had them scattered round as decorations, you know, sort of perhaps even in your Easter egg hunt instead of sort of going for chocolate overload. So I've got the sort of traditional mini yellow ones. They come a bit misshapen, but they do have a piece of wire in them. So like anything that's got a wire in it, you can readjust them a little bit and sort of bring them back to life a little bit. And then I've got some super duper little ones, a little tutu on that little chick there. And then I do have coloured ones as well, which I really don't like. I didn't mind the green ones on my little row there. But, I mean, blue chicks. I must find a way of using up those blue chicks, because I don't really like them very much. So I've got 4 blue chicks, which are quite sweet, I suppose, and then pink as well, so a little squashed pink chick. So I guess it depends what you like to have around the house, and you know, if you're working to a colour theme in your decorations. So perhaps if you were dressing your table with everything in pink, you'd want to go down the pink chick route. I'm quite traditional, so I like the yellow chicks. So I'm going to be working with the yellow chicks today. And what I've got with me as well is I've got some silver birch twigs. So I had these left over from a project in the winter time. I like using these to make Christmas door wreaths with, or to embellish my Christmas door wreaths with. And silver birch twigs are really one of my favourite materials, because they're widely available. Now what you need to do is spot round where you live where the silver birch trees are, and these are the trees that got the white stems with the sort of almost papery peeling bark, and in any reasonably strong wind the silver birch twigs will be knocked to the ground, so you just need to go along and pick them off the floor. These have gone dry now, so they're quite brittle, but when they've just been blown off the tree they've still got a subtlety to them, so you can bend them quite easily. I mean, you can see there, you could almost make a wreath even though that's been dried for the last 4 months, or out of water for the last 4 months. So I'm going to be using the little bits of end of that twig, and I've got a length of ribbon as well, so I can hang my little branch up. And then the only other ingredient is hot glue gun. So I'm using this for convenience. And if you had any glue, you'd be fine, but hot glue gun is faster to use, quicker. You'll finish your project much quicker. You just need to be careful, health and safety and all that, that it's hot. And quite often you'll burn yourself because you'll get your fingers in the way. And what you can do if you're worried about the burning is either to have a damp cloth nearby so you can soothe the pain, or with any burn you'd have to go to the tap and run your finger under the tap. So good morning, Lucy. It's nice to have you with me. I think it's just gone 9:30, so I'm going to rack into things really. So we're talking about making the little hanging chicks. I'm going to make a much smaller one this time because I want to suspend it inside a little glass vase, and this is what my terrarium arrangement was. I've got some little fake eggs in there. Making arrangements inside vases and having a sort of an inside garden world is really trendy at the moment, and I thought it would make my little spring chicks look a little less Easterish and more embracing the spring season. So I'm going to be using this big jar, which I'm not sure where it came from. I think possibly from a charity shop, or I've been given it by a friend, but it's like a Kilner jar, but it doesn't have Kilner written anywhere on there, so I'm not quite sure what it came to. You'll see that sort of glistening in the light. The key when you're using glassware is to make sure it's really, really clean. So what I tend to do is to put my glassware through the dishwasher, because it really does bring it up really nice and shiny. But you just need to take care that if you are using, you know, glassware you got from the charity shop, that it's not always dishwasher proof, and I have lost several lovely jars that way. But I just do it for convenience really, otherwise you're there laboriously washing by hand, which again doesn't take too long, but it's just, life is easier if you can put everything into the dishwasher. So I've got my Easter chicks, my handful of little Easter chicks, which are made with a little wire running through them, so you can, they get a bit crumpled, so you can sort of remodel them a little bit, bring them back to life. A length of ribbon, and some, I've got silver birch branches here because I just had them at home, but any little branch will do, and my trusty hot glue gun as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is to make the little branch for my chicks to sit on. So taking the silver birch, I'm just going to chop it up into little manageable lengths. So I'm doing this one quite short, so I'm only cutting up to be about 10 centimetres long probably, and just snipping the way through. And you just snip off as many as you want. If you don't use too many, or if you use too few, it'll just be a bit lightweight, and you'll find even though the chicks are quite light as well, that they may become unbalanced and may even snap your sticks. So you need a little handful. There's nothing precise about what number you need. So I'll just go through and cut these twigs down, taking them off that main stem. So I've got myself a little pile of twigs in there, and then what I'm going to do is sort them out so that all the little tips are at the top and the cut pieces are at the bottom. So that's getting them all the right way up. So just clustering those in my hand. Like that, so you can see that where I've cut them, they're all short and stubby, and then you've got these nice fine twigs at the end. But because I want the branch to sit horizontally, I then divide the little bundle in half, and I put it sort of end to end, so that I've got nice fine pieces here and nice fine pieces here. So it's not like a one-sided branch where it's all nice and drapey at one side and short and truncated at the other. So the thing then to do is I need to tie those together, and I've got a piece of ribbon here, and I'm going to just tie a knot around the end. So I might have to come out of view while I do that, just to spin that round. So just a conventional knot at that end, and then I'm going to come round and do a knot at the other end as well. So again, just a little bit out of view probably for you. And again, it depends how long a piece of ribbon you want to use as well. This is just an offcut that I had. So I've got a nice sort of hanging piece there, but if you only had a shorter piece of ribbon, you just have a shorter length there as well. So that's my little perch for my birds, and then I'm going to glue them on so they can sit inside there. So each little chick has a pair of feet with 3 toes facing forwards, and a pair of heels. I don't quite know what they're called at the bottom. And I'm going to use my glue gun, and I'm going to glue along the underside of the chick's feet, and then I'm going to slide that in between the branches. So here goes, and it just needs to be, it's all quite small, it doesn't need to be much glue, just a dribble, and it can be quite a skill just getting the right amount of glue on there. And it's a clear glue, so you won't be able to see it, although when it dries, it does dry slightly opaque, so you get sort of a white sheen to it. And I'm then going to slide the feet in between the branches. So it's not actually sitting on the branch, the feet are running through the twigs. And I just found that if you put it on the top, it just again upsets the balance, and as it dries you do get that lump of sort of whitish glue, so it's just a way of hiding the glue. So I'm going to put a little friend next to that as well, so exactly the same thing, that putting the glue, just the tiniest trail of glue, sort of like a slug snail trail of glue at the top, and then to slide that in at the front. I'm not sure, getting my hands in the way, so sliding that through, and they will be dry in seconds really. And the only thing you might find with the glue gun is the glue does get quite brittle, so if you were planning on keeping these for years and years and years, you'd probably find that after you took them out of the box in sort of year 3 or 4 that they will just snap off, but you could glue them on easily. But really, I don't know who'd want to keep little chicks for years and years and years. I'm just trying to sort of make use out of them this year to save me throwing them away again. And then you want to make sure it hangs up, so you might need to adjust the way, oh look, they've fallen down. So it's all a lesson in science and balance. I'm just going to rotate my knot around so they sit a bit better, like that. Hey presto, they're balancing. And then in terms of the terrarium element, so you can spend ages actually before I go on to that, you know, adjusting things, and you'll have more time to do that. But if it does all tip over the wrong way, you can just push things back a little bit, so don't worry about that. So I've got my lovely glass jar that's been through the dishwasher, and what I'm going to do is sort of put a base in the bottom. So I've got a little bit of moss. Now I've bought this moss from my local florist in a huge box. It's called flat moss, and I was using that for a project just before Christmas, and it's now dried out. But because I've let it dry out naturally, it still retains some of the greenish colour on the back. It's just the brown colour. But you could use anything for this really, and even, you know, pulling moss out of your garden. I wouldn't take moss from the wild, or off the roof of your shed, or we quite often have moss that falls down off the front of our porch. So you could pick up bits of moss from anywhere really. Or if you didn't have moss, and perhaps you live next to the sea, you know, a handful of shingle, you know, stones and things like that. If you've got little ones that like picking up little treasures from the beach, you could make it more of a sort of seaside theme to this, and you could put shells and what have you inside. So I'm going to push that down inside my vase like that, and then I've got some fake eggs. So these are again little plasticky eggs, look quite realistic, and you know, drop a couple into there. Couple is 5 in the bottom of there, so just sort of building up the arrangement and layering things down. And then with my little chicks, I'm going to suspend them down inside my pot. So first of all, I've got to get them in the pot, so I'll have to turn them sideways. And in fact, I've just discovered I might bend some of those ends, because despite measuring, my little twigs have grown a little bit. So I'm going to push them down into the pot, and I want them to stay there. So what I'm going to do then is the stick that I broke off earlier, I'm going to suspend that across the edge of the pot and cut off that loose end there, and they will sit. And in fact, I can see that my length of ribbon is too long, so always adjusting. I can tie a knot in the top just to reduce the length of the ribbon a little. And I could then thread my stick through that sort of loopy knot that I made. Slide that on like so, and then that will sit at just the right height. Oops. And there you have a little terrarium arrangement with these little hanging chicks in the middle of the pot. So you would take more time to dress that up and make sure wherever you were going to put that, if you were putting it on the shelf or on the table, it just looked good from the angle you were going to be looking at it. At the moment, I can see that my little chicks slightly tilted back so I can see the bits of glue, which you probably can't see. So I would just spend more time, perhaps even with my scissors, just sort of readjusting things and getting them to sit in the perfect place. But it's just, to give you an idea of how you might want to, make that season last longer. So we sort of moved away from Easter to, getting the spring vibe to carry on. And, you may find the chicks are just too tacky for you. Well, just don't do it then. And you may find you don't want the eggs. So, you do exactly what you want to do. And another way I could sort of jazz this up a little bit. The moss in here was dry, but if I put a tiny bit of water in to get it to moisten up a bit, so a little bit of water in there, so that'll perk up the colour and become more vibrant over the next few days. And then I've got my ranunculus that I was using in the previous live video, and these won't last forever, so I'm going to cut them really short and just get a bit of pleasure out of them. So that's really short. It's about it's a pinch mark. It's a centimetre long, 1.5 centimetres, and then I can push those into the glass pot, and they'll just be taking a bit of moisture up from the moss and the water below it. I'm not going to overdo it. I'll perhaps get another one, perhaps a smaller one, just so I've got a large and a small. So cut that down really short, again, about 1 centimetre long, so really, really short, and push that down inside. So I've just got the 2 ranunculus there, a big one and a small one. If you wanted to add the eggs, you can't see that one, you could go for a bit more eggage. So it does look quite attractive. And the idea here being that of the whole sort of terrarium look is, again, it's like seeing something in the biology lab or something like that, as in the specimen jar, and it really does make you look. And the glass sort of, it's having something under glass. It's almost like you're looking at butterflies in the Victorian times. You really do get an opportunity to look at your flowers instead of sort of seeing them en masse and just thinking bunch of pink flowers. You look at them and you can start to see how the flower opens up, and I can see all the dark centre there and all the petals rippling up, and it's just really lovely to look at. And then if we did want to go the whole hog again with my misbehaving chicks, I could then slide those back into the pot, and I can have my little chicks underneath the pot as well. So it's just perhaps a more subtle way of embracing the Easter season and spring, but another idea for you to use. And it's only taking me 2 flowers which were coming to the end of their life anyway, and a couple of chicks that I was probably going to throw in the bin. So it's just a really good way of making use of bits and bobs you've probably got around the house already to make something that's really eye-catching, and hopefully people would stop and stare and admire your new talents. So I'm going to leave it there for now, and I will see you another time. So cheerio now.